Some people step into a room and, without speaking a single word, the atmosphere shifts. Opportunities seem to find them. Respect is drawn to them. Luck quietly follows their path. It's not about fame, beauty, or wealth. It's about something much more subtle, something invisible yet undeniable. The energy they carry, shaped by the very clothes wrapped around their body. In the wisdom of Feng Shui, what you wear is never just a matter of style. Every color, every fabric, every cut silently sculpts your personal magnetic field. Your outfit isn't just a fashion statement. It's your first energetic handshake with the world around you. Without you realizing it, your clothes can either invite fortune, success, and powerful opportunities into your life, or quietly repel them. Today on New Day Mindfulness, I'm going to show you a truth most people never even think about. You don't need a wardrobe full of expensive brands, and you don't need to follow fleeting fashion trends. Real transformation, the kind that moves unseen but unmistakably, often starts with one small, intentional shift in how you choose what you wear. This is ancient knowledge applied for modern life, and it's far more powerful than any quick-fix advice you've heard before. But before we dive deeper into this hidden dimension of everyday life, I have a small request. If you value real wisdom, practical teachings that you can actually use to create a better future, please take a second right now to like this video, share it with someone who would benefit, and subscribe to New Day Mindfulness. Every click you make helps me reach the milestone of 1,000 followers, a goal that will unlock even more ways for me to deliver quality content to you and to everyone seeking to live more intentionally, more abundantly, and more wisely. Your support isn't just a number, it's a ripple effect, spreading real grounded knowledge in a world drowning in noise. And it gives me the energy to continue bringing you content that doesn't just inspire, but equips you to transform quietly and powerfully from within. Now, are you ready to find out how a simple choice in your wardrobe could be the missing key to attracting more wealth, more opportunity, and more unseen support into your life? Stay with me, because what you're about to discover may just change how you look at yourself and your future forever. Let's begin. The true energy behind clothing in Feng Shui. In Feng Shui, clothing is never seen as merely something you put on. It is an energetic layer, a moving environment that touches your body and interacts with your personal chi throughout the day. The fabrics you wear, the colors you choose, and the structure of your outfit either nourish your life force or subtly drain it. Every piece of clothing forms part of your external energy field, influencing not just how you feel, but how the world responds to you. Colors, textures, and forms are more than aesthetics. They are energetic tools. Each color vibrates at a certain frequency and either harmonizes with or disrupts your natural element. When you wear colors aligned with your birth element, whether metal, water, wood, fire, or earth, you strengthen your internal energy and invite opportunities that match your intentions. For instance, metal energies are enhanced by whites, grays, and metallics, promoting clarity and sharp decision-making. Wood thrives in greens and browns, fostering growth and expansion. Fire flourishes under reds and vibrant oranges, igniting visibility and leadership, while water finds power in blues and blacks, inviting wisdom and flow. Earth grounds itself through yellows and ochres, building stability and nurturing financial prosperity. Texture plays an equally vital role. Natural materials like cotton, silk, and linen allow chi to circulate freely, maintaining a living connection between your body and the environment. In contrast, synthetic fabrics tend to trap or distort energy, leading to stagnation, fatigue, or subtle irritation over time. Just as a home filled with natural wood, stone, and plants vibrates with life, so too does a body dressed in breathable, organic fabrics. The fit and structure of clothing are often underestimated but deeply significant. Clothes that are too tight constrict energy, while clothing that is excessively loose disperses it. In Feng Shui, the ideal is clothing that fits naturally, following the contours of the body without restriction. This encourages healthy energy circulation, mirrors physical vitality, and subtly signals confidence to the outside world. More than just personal comfort, your clothing influences the environment you step into. In every meeting, negotiation, or casual encounter, you are communicating energetically before you even open your mouth. When your clothing amplifies your elemental energy, you project stability, magnetism, and openness. People feel drawn to you without quite knowing why. Conversely, if your outfit conflicts with your energy, you may unknowingly repel opportunities, create misunderstandings, or find yourself exhausted by situations that should have energized you. Moreover, your wardrobe becomes a dynamic extension of seasonal energies, dressing in harmony with the natural cycles. Lighter, flowing clothes in spring to match wood energy, vibrant and breathable materials in summer to support fire energy, structured, grounding tones in autumn for metal energy, and richer, protective fabrics in winter aligned with water helps you ride the rhythms of the year instead of resisting them. This connection to the larger energy field magnifies your internal chi, making success and well-being easier to sustain. It's important to note that clothing also retains energetic memory. Garments worn during moments of triumph can reinforce confidence when worn again, while outfits associated with past sadness or fear can unconsciously anchor you to old energies. In Feng Shui practice, it's wise to periodically cleanse your wardrobe, not just physically, but energetically, by airing clothes in sunlight or simply using mindful intention to refresh their vibrational field. Ultimately, your clothing choices are not about impressing others. They are about honoring your own life force. Each morning when you choose what to wear, you are setting a subtle but powerful tone for the energy you will carry into the world. A conscious, intentional approach to dressing becomes a daily act of self-alignment, transforming something routine into something quietly profound. In Feng Shui, your outfit is like a personal chai map. You wear it into every meeting, every opportunity, and every first impression. Whether it strengthens or scatters, your energy is not a matter of luck. It is a matter of awareness. And the beautiful truth is that you have the power to choose alignment, strength, and success, one conscious decision at a time, starting from the very clothes you put on. Section 1. How to choose colors that feed your wealth. Qi. In Feng Shui, colors are never chosen randomly. They are living, vibrating energies that directly communicate with your personal qi in the greater energetic field around you. Every color you wear sends a silent but potent signal that either strengthens your natural luck, enhances your prosperity field, or weakens and confuses it. To harness the true potential of your wardrobe for wealth attraction, you must first understand the powerful relationship between your personal birth element and the colors that nourish it. In the 5-element theory, metal, water, wood, fire, and earth, each person is governed primarily by one dominant energy. This element acts as a blueprint for your energetic needs, and choosing the right colors aligned with it is like feeding a flame with the perfect kind of wood or watering a plant with the exact balance it needs to thrive. Those born under the metal element thrive when wearing shades that reinforce clarity, precision, and brilliance. White, silver, gold, and pastel colors resonate harmoniously with metal chi. These tones sharpen the mind, refine communication, and amplify leadership energy. Wearing crisp white, for instance, polishes your aura and projects a decisive, trustworthy frequency, making negotiations smoother and decisions more respected. Silver accents or accessories reflect both light and opportunity, acting almost like energetic mirrors that deflect negativity and attract sharp, valuable prospects. People aligned with metal who neglect these colors often find themselves overwhelmed by chaos or indecision, while those who embrace them consistently experience higher levels of recognition and clarity in their endeavors. Water element individuals find their strength and wealth pathways activated through the deep, flowing hues of dark blue, navy, and black. Water energy governs wisdom, intuition, adaptability, and hidden wealth. Wearing dark, fluid colors creates an energetic environment of depth and introspection, allowing opportunities to flow naturally toward the wearer. Black, often misunderstood as unlucky in some cultures, is actually a color of immense potential in Feng Shui when properly balanced. It symbolizes hidden treasures, strategic thinking, and emotional resilience. People with dominant water energy who incorporate these tones into their clothing often find themselves more perceptive, more patient in negotiations, and more naturally aligned with the opportunities that require deep understanding or timing. Wood energy, the spirit of growth, creativity, and expansion, flourishes under green shades. Forest green, olive, emerald, and even lighter shades like mint all strengthen the expansive chi associated with this element. Green is the color of vitality, ambition, and continuous improvement. It resonates with the unstoppable upward movement of trees reaching for the sky. Those with a wood constitution benefit from wearing greens because it stabilizes their desire for progress and growth without tipping into reckless expansion. Moreover, green outfits are especially powerful in periods where you seek new beginnings, whether launching a new business, entering a new career phase, or expanding into uncharted territories. Green nurtures patience and persistence, key qualities for building lasting success. Fire element personalities burn brightest when they embrace reds, oranges, and purples. These bold, high-energy colors amplify visibility, passion, and charisma. Red is the purest expression of fire, inviting recognition, igniting action, and stirring leadership instincts. Orange adds a layer of sociability and warmth, encouraging collaboration and magnetic networking. Purple, traditionally associated with royalty and high wisdom, merges the raw energy of fire with a sense of elevated vision. People ruled by fire who intentionally incorporate these vibrant colors often find their influence spreading naturally, their ideas catching hold, and their reputation strengthening almost effortlessly. However, they must balance the intensity, as too much fire energy without grounding can lead to burnout or impulsiveness. Therefore, strategic placement, like a red scarf, a statement tie, or a purple blazer, is often more effective than overwhelming head-to-toe boldness. Earth element individuals anchor their prosperity through yellows, ochres, beiges, and soft browns. These nurturing tones ground energy, promote trustworthiness, and stabilize personal and financial foundations. Yellow in particular carries the vibration of harvest, abundance, and happiness. Ochre and warm browns echo the dependable richness of the earth, signaling loyalty, patience, and endurance. Those connected to earth energy are at their best when they project steadiness and calm confidence, traits highly sought after in long-term business partnerships and leadership roles. Earth colors create an environment where success feels earned, stable, and sustainable rather than fleeting or chaotic. Choosing colors correctly is not merely about personal taste. It's about aligning your external presentation with the unseen currents that guide fortune. A misalignment between your birth element and the colors you wear can subtly distort your energy field. For instance, a fire element individual who habitually dresses in too much water-associated blue may find their enthusiasm dampened, their initiatives delayed, and their influence diluted. Conversely, a metal element person drowning in earthy browns may feel sluggish, indecisive, and uninspired. Color harmonization isn't superstition, it's energetic physics at the most personal level. Let's consider a real-world example to illustrate this truth. I once consulted for a young entrepreneur whose business had reached a plateau. Despite tireless efforts, new contracts stalled, negotiations felt sluggish, and momentum seemed elusive. After examining her personal energy profile, it became clear that she was predominantly a wood element. Yet her wardrobe was dominated by blacks, grays, and muted neutrals, colors aligned with water and metal, which, while supportive in certain areas, were not feeding her intrinsic drive for expansion. Together, we restructured her wardrobe, incorporating more shades of green and blue-green blends to reawaken her growth energy. She started wearing forest green blouses for important meetings, carrying an emerald-hued scarf during negotiations, and subtly weaving greens into her daily outfits. Within 3 months, she secured the largest contract of her career, expanded into 2 new markets, and found herself surrounded by opportunities that previously seemed just out of reach. Her story isn't rare. It's a tangible example of how subtle energetic shifts in personal presentation can lead to powerful real-world transformations. For those seeking to maximize the wealth-attracting potential of their clothing, it's important not only to focus on the dominant color, but to understand how to balance supporting and controlling elements. A fire individual, for instance, might still weave in earth tones like ochre or beige to anchor their vibrant energy and prevent burnout. A water person might use metallic accents to add clarity and focus to their otherwise fluid and introspective nature. Feng Shui is a dance of energies, and color is one of the most powerful steps in that dance. Additionally, practical application matters. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by the need to completely overhaul your wardrobe, start small but intentional. Incorporate wealth-supporting colors into key items. A blazer for meetings, a scarf for networking events, a handbag or wallet in your auspicious color. Gradually, as you feel the energetic shift, you can expand your color integration more naturally and intuitively. It's also vital to tune into the seasonality of color energy. Certain times of the year call for amplifying specific elements. In spring, wood colors, greens, light blues, harmonize with the upward movement of new life. In summer, fire colors, reds, bright oranges, celebrate expansion. In autumn, metal colors, white, metallics, grays, align with refinement and harvest. In winter, watercolors, deep blues, blacks, support inner reflection and conservation. Earth tones maintain grounding influence year-round, but are especially stabilizing during seasonal transitions. Aligning your wardrobe not only with your personal element, but also with the seasonal energy cycle further amplifies your prosperity field. Ultimately, color is not merely about aesthetics or personal taste. It's about energetically positioning yourself to receive the right opportunities at the right time in the right state of mind. In Feng Shui, we say that success is never accidental. It is a carefully cultivated garden of intentional choices, invisible alignments, and energetic readiness. Choosing the right colors for your body is one of the simplest yet most profoundly effective tools in building that garden. Every morning as you stand before your closet, you are facing more than a fashion choice. You are facing an energetic decision. Will you step out wearing energy that feeds your destiny or energy that starves it? Understanding the deep connection between your colors and your chai allows you to make that decision with wisdom, power, and purpose. Your clothes become not just fabric and thread, but silent partners in your journey toward wealth, success, and personal fulfillment. Section 2. Fabrics are invisible energy conduits. In the study of authentic Feng Shui, it becomes increasingly clear that energy is never static. It is in constant conversation with everything that surrounds it. Your home, your office, your environment, all shape your chai in powerful, often invisible ways. However, few realize that the clothing you wear is perhaps the closest, most intimate layer of this energetic interaction. It moves with you, it touches your skin, and it either amplifies or suppresses the quality of energy you carry into the world. Fabrics, in this understanding, are not just materials stitched together to provide warmth or modesty. They are conduits, or conversely, barriers, for your personal vitality, success, and overall fortune. Traditional Feng Shui masters always observed the way materials affected the movement of qi. Natural fabrics such as cotton, silk, linen, hemp, and wool were consistently favored because they are derived from living organisms. Their fibers retain the essence of life force. They breathe, they absorb, they exchange energy with the environment. When you wear garments made of these natural fibers, you allow the qi surrounding you to circulate freely across your energy field, supporting everything from emotional resilience to financial magnetism. Imagine a mountain stream flowing unimpeded through lush valleys, fresh, vibrant, and nourishing. That is the effect of natural fabrics on your body's energy field. Silk, in particular, holds a revered status across many ancient cultures, not simply because of its luxurious feel, but because of its powerful energetic properties. Produced by silkworms, living beings weaving intricate cocoons, silk naturally harmonizes human energy fields. It amplifies clarity, supports emotional balance, and promotes a quiet kind of inner authority that others unconsciously respect. Cotton, derived from the earth, anchors and stabilizes energy, making it ideal for daily wear, particularly when engaging in grounding activities such as work or study. Linen, woven from flax, carries a high-frequency vibration known for its purifying qualities. Wool, when ethically sourced, envelops the body with a gentle, warming field of protection, shielding one from energetic disturbances in chaotic environments. In contrast, synthetic fabrics such as polyester, acrylic, nylon, and rayon, while hailed for their affordability and durability, do not participate in this energetic dialogue. They are manufactured through chemical processes, often petroleum-based, and lack any connection to the living forces of the earth. In Feng Shui terms, these fabrics are inert. They block natural energy flow, creating microstagnations around the body. Over time, wearing heavy synthetic garments can leave you feeling inexplicably exhausted, emotionally disconnected, or strangely off without any obvious cause. It's like being inside a beautifully decorated room with no fresh air. On the surface, everything looks fine, but the vitality has drained away. One of the simplest yet most profound tips passed down by Feng Shui practitioners is this: before purchasing or wearing any piece of clothing, take a moment to feel the fabric between your fingers. Close your eyes if needed. If the fabric feels vibrant, breathable, alive, it is supporting you. If it feels heavy, lifeless, resistant, it is energetically dead. Imagine how this fabric would interact with your skin for hours each day. If it feels dead in your hands, it will almost certainly block the free movement of qi around your body once worn. And qi, once blocked, leads not only to personal fatigue, but also to subtle disruptions in external fortune, missed opportunities, weakened influence, or unnoticed luck slipping away. There is also a more nuanced layer to the energetic impact of fabric, the interaction between the material and the intended activity or environment. For example, attending a negotiation meeting while wrapped in synthetic fibers could unconsciously project a sense of emotional distance or rigidity, making it harder for the other party to trust or connect with you. Entering a new business venture while wearing rich, living fabrics like silk or fine cotton naturally projects openness, confidence, and strength without a word needing to be spoken. In social gatherings where networking is key, linen's purifying energy can help you stay clear-minded and magnetic, subtly filtering out chaotic or draining energies from others. In Feng Shui, the principle of resonance teaches that like attracts like. When you wear living fabrics, you align yourself with vitality, growth, and natural abundance. When you cover yourself with synthetic barriers, you unintentionally resonate with stagnation, resistance, and artificiality. Over time, these resonances accumulate, building invisible fields around you that either invite prosperity and health, or erode them quietly without your conscious awareness. It is also essential to recognize that fabric interacts with seasonal energy. During spring and summer, when wood and fire elements dominate, lighter, more breathable fabrics like cotton and linen harmonize with the expanding upward qi of nature. In autumn and winter, when metal and water elements take precedence, richer textures such as silk and ethical wool provide the necessary containment and inward focus to stabilize your energy against environmental contraction. Ignoring the seasonal fabric flow is similar to wearing winter clothes in the middle of summer. It creates discomfort not only at the physical level, but also at the energetic level, disrupting your alignment with nature's rhythms. Beyond the material itself, the quality and origin of the fabric also matter. Organically grown cotton vibrates differently from chemically treated mass-market cotton. Silk obtained through ethical, sustainable means carries a cleaner, stronger life force than silk produced under exploitative conditions. Even the craftsmanship, the care and intention of the people who wove the fabric leaves subtle energetic imprints that can enhance or diminish the garment's power. In Feng Shui, every energetic imprint matters. When you choose mindfully, you multiply your field of support. When you choose carelessly, you introduce energetic friction into your life, often without realizing it until patterns of struggle or stagnation become visible. Energetic maintenance of clothing is another crucial practice that serious students of Feng Shui integrate into their lives. Even natural fabrics, over time, absorb emotional residues, environmental pollutants, and energetic clutter. Regular energetic cleansing, whether by sunning garments outdoors, lightly steaming them, shaking them with mindful intention, or even sounding a bell or singing bowl over them, helps restore their ability to conduct clean, vibrant qi. Garments frequently worn during stressful, confrontational, or sorrowful periods should be cleansed more intentionally, ensuring they do not carry hidden burdens into your future experiences. Ultimately, understanding fabrics as energy conduits invites a profound shift in how we approach even the smallest aspects of daily life. Dressing becomes not merely an act of covering the body, but a deliberate construction of your personal energy architecture. Every time you slip on a garment made of living material, you are wrapping yourself in a field of natural power. Every time you shield yourself in synthetic barriers, you are dimming that field, often without realizing how it may be impacting your wealth, your vitality, your relationships, and your ability to seize life's opportunities. In Feng Shui, there are no trivial choices. There are only choices that either move you closer to your highest potential or choices that subtly delay it. The fabrics you choose each day form the invisible threads weaving the tapestry of your life's fortune. Choose them with awareness, and you transform not just how you look, but how you move through the world, how you are received, and ultimately, what you are able to manifest. Section 3. Dressing in the right shape and structure. In the traditional wisdom of Feng Shui, we often speak about the importance of flow, how the arrangement of furniture, the placement of objects, and even the orientation of buildings either supports or obstructs the smooth circulation of qi, the vital life force that animates and sustains all living things. Yet what is often overlooked is that this principle applies not only to the static structures we inhabit, but equally to the moving structures we wear on our bodies, our clothing. Shape and structure are not trivial details. They are fundamental to how energy is either harnessed or dissipated in everyday life. Just as a home with poor layout confuses the energy and invites misfortune, clothing with improper form disrupts the body's energetic integrity, weakening your ability to attract success, health, and positive circumstances. When it comes to the relationship between clothing and Shui, the first concept to understand is that clothing shapes energy in two primary ways: containment and flow. Clothes that are too loose, excessively oversized, shapeless, or slouchy cause your energy to scatter. Imagine water poured into a basin with no sides. It flows everywhere, uncontrolled, unable to build momentum or power. Loose clothing creates the same energetic effect. It makes it harder for your personal Shui to stay cohesive, leading to a sensation of fatigue, distraction, or missed opportunities. People might overlook you, conversations may not anchor properly, and intentions you set may feel like they dissolve into thin air without bearing fruit. On the other hand, clothes that are excessively tight present the opposite problem. They constrict the body's natural movement and compress the energy field too tightly against the skin, suffocating rather than empowering the life force. This compression symbolizes blocked potential, suppressed creativity, and a tendency for opportunities to feel out of reach or stifled. Tight clothing often corresponds energetically to feelings of frustration, pressure, and impatience, the very emotional frequencies that repel abundance and block progress. Therefore, the ideal in Feng Shui is balance, structure without confinement, flow without chaos. Clothing should gently outline the body's natural shape without pinching, pulling, or distorting it. Structured but comfortable garments support good posture, enhance natural movement, and preserve the coherent shape of your energy field as you move through the world. Well-fitted clothing acts much like well-arranged furniture in a home. It directs energy where it needs to go while providing stability and clarity. When you wear a tailored jacket that fits your shoulders properly, for instance, you project authority, competence, and self-assurance, not only visually but energetically. When you wear pants that fit comfortably at the waist and allow ease of motion, you ground your energy in the lower chakras, supporting confidence, stability, and financial strength. The metaphor of a Feng Shui optimized room is particularly apt. Imagine entering a space where furniture is thoughtfully placed. Pathways are clear, corners are supported, and the flow from one area to another feels natural and inviting. You would move through that space effortlessly, feeling energized, centered, and capable. Now contrast that with a cluttered, cramped room where furniture is either absent or haphazardly strewn about. Movement feels awkward, energy gets stuck, and even simple actions become tedious. Your clothing has precisely the same effect on your personal energy system. Poorly structured garments turn your body into a cluttered, energetic space. Well-structured, comfortable clothing turns your body into a graceful channel through which life, opportunity, and abundance can easily flow. It is also important to recognize that the structure of clothing influences how others perceive your energy at a subconscious level. Humans are wired to respond to nonverbal signals, and clothing is one of the most potent silent communicators. A person dressed in clean, structured, balanced garments sends a strong, energetic message. I am prepared. I am grounded. I am capable. Opportunities, whether professional, social, or personal, naturally gravitate toward individuals who embody this frequency. In contrast, clothing that appears sloppy, overly tight, or exaggeratedly loose signals instability, confusion, or hidden resistance. This isn't about conforming to fashion standards. It is about dressing in a way that energetically amplifies your own inner coherence, strength, and clarity. Choosing clothing with the right structure also supports physical health, which in turn reinforces energetic vitality. Clothes that allow for full lung expansion support better breathing, which directly feeds the Chi system through enhanced oxygen intake. Clothing that allows the shoulders to rest naturally without drooping or being pulled forward supports spinal alignment, which is essential for the free flow of energy along the body's meridian lines. Tight belts, overly restrictive waistbands, or compressed footwear can interfere with the natural circulation of energy in the abdominal and lower body areas, subtly affecting digestion, stability, and groundedness. Every aspect of garment structure, seams, cuts, lengths, closures, should be considered from the standpoint of energy flow as much as from visual appearance. Even accessories such as belts, scarves, and jewelry must be integrated thoughtfully. A belt that is too tight may symbolize constriction of resources or blocked creativity, while a scarf worn lightly around the neck can enhance the protection of the throat chakra, supporting communication and self-expression. Structured, intentional use of accessories can enhance specific energy centers while maintaining the overall integrity of the energy field, much like well-placed art or lighting enhances a Feng Shui optimized room. It is worth noting that while structure is critical, comfort must never be sacrificed in the name of formality or style. True energetic alignment arises from ease, not tension. Just as in a well-designed home there must be space for breath and movement, your clothing must support, not suppress, the natural rhythm of your body. Stiff, rigid garments that restrict normal posture or movement, even if they appear structured, can have the opposite effect of what is intended, hardening the energy field and making genuine connection more difficult. Comfort here does not mean sloppiness. It means functional elegance. Clothing that respects both your physical needs and your energetic aspirations. Seasonal variations also influence the ideal garment structure. In spring and summer, when Qi is expansive, lighter, more flowing structures can be embraced to encourage creativity and exploration. In autumn and winter, when energy naturally contracts and consolidates, slightly heavier, more enclosed structures can help preserve warmth, focus, and resilience. Being attuned to these natural shifts amplifies the effectiveness of your wardrobe as an energetic tool, allowing you to move with, rather than against, the cycles of Qi in the environment. One real-world observation highlights the power of structure beautifully. I once worked with a corporate client, a brilliant strategist, who consistently lost leadership opportunities to less qualified candidates. Despite her sharp mind and exceptional performance, something about her presence failed to command the attention and respect she deserved. Upon review, it became clear. Her wardrobe was dominated by oversized, flowy garments that scattered her formidable mental energy. We redesigned her professional attire to include tailored jackets, structured blouses, and pants that emphasize clean lines and strong grounding. Within months, her influence in meetings transformed. Her voice carried more authority, her ideas received faster buy-in, and she was promoted to a senior leadership role. This change was not superficial. It was a recalibration of her energy field through the power of structure. Ultimately, dressing in the right shape and structure is about honoring the architecture of your own life force. It is a silent but potent act of self-respect, signaling to the universe that you are ready to move through life with clarity, strength, and grace. Clothing, when chosen and worn with awareness, becomes not merely an external shell, but an active participant in your journey toward wealth, well-being, and personal mastery. It is not about fashion trends, nor about adhering to rigid dress codes. It is about constructing an energetic vessel that supports your highest potential. The next time you stand before your wardrobe, remember, you are not merely choosing what to wear. You are choosing the energetic house you will inhabit for the day. Will it be loose and leaking, rigid and restricted, or strong, coherent, and gracefully alive? The answer shapes far more than how you look. It shapes how you live, what you attract, and who you ultimately become. Section 4. Accessories as energy magnifiers. In Feng Shui, accessories are far more than mere decorations or personal adornments. They are powerful extensions of intention and serve as energetic amplifiers that can either support or diminish the flow of qi in and around your personal energy field. Every object that you place close to your body, every piece of jewelry, every belt, every scarf, every small item you carry, interacts with the invisible currents of life force that dictate your experience of opportunity, prosperity, protection, and emotional well-being. Accessories are not neutral. They are active participants in the energetic conversation between you and the universe. To use them effectively, one must understand their symbolic resonance, material properties, and alignment with personal energetic goals. When chosen with conscious intent, accessories strengthen your inner signal, making you a magnet for wealth, leadership, stability, and success. When chosen carelessly or worn without awareness, they create energetic noise, scattering your field and confusing the messages you send into the world. The principle behind accessory energy in Feng Shui is simple yet profound: amplification. Just as a small mirror can direct sunlight into a focused, blinding beam, a small piece of jewelry or an intentional adornment can focus your life force toward a specific outcome. This is why accessories should never be random. Each item worn or carried should have a purpose, whether it is to attract wealth, protect vitality, enhance leadership, or stabilize emotional states. Accessorizing without intention is like trying to play a symphony with instruments out of tune. It creates energetic dissonance that diminishes personal power rather than enhancing it. Take, for example, citrine jewelry. Citrine, a golden-yellow gemstone revered across many ancient traditions, carries the energetic signature of wealth attraction, joy, and confidence. In Feng Shui, citrine is associated with the earth element, grounding ambition while simultaneously expanding prosperity. Wearing a citrine ring or pendant close to the solar plexus area, the energetic center of personal power and decision-making, can significantly enhance one's ability to attract and retain wealth opportunities. Citrine vibrates at a frequency that resonates with abundance, optimism, and financial growth. It does not merely bring good luck in some passive sense. Rather, it amplifies the energy of confidence, clarity, and magnetic optimism within the wearer, making them more likely to recognize and act upon opportunities that lead to material success. Similarly, gold and silver accents are potent energy tools, especially when integrated thoughtfully into daily wear. Gold resonates with the fire and metal elements, symbolizing brilliance, authority, and dynamic leadership. Silver, with its softer luster, embodies the cooling, reflective qualities of water and metal, enhancing clarity, intuition, and calm decisiveness. In the energetic blueprint of Feng Shui, metal governs logic, precision, communication, and strategic power. Thus, incorporating gold or silver elements, whether through jewelry, belt buckles, watch faces, cufflinks, or subtle embellishments, can sharpen decision-making, fortify leadership presence, and enhance one's reputation. These metals will also serve as energetic protectors, deflecting negative energy and reinforcing the integrity of the personal chi field. Jade, a revered stone in both Feng Shui and broader Eastern traditions, stands as a powerful symbol of protection, longevity, and emotional stability. Unlike the fiery radiance of citrine or the reflective brilliance of gold and silver, jade carries a deep, grounding energy that stabilizes and nourishes the wearer's connection to the earth element. Wearing jade close to the heart center, through pendants, brooches, or even small amulets carried in a pocket, helps fortify emotional resilience, ward off harm, and encourage wise, steady growth in all areas of life. Jade is particularly beneficial for individuals seeking not just wealth, but the kind of enduring prosperity that supports family, community, and generational well-being. Its cooling, harmonizing vibration shields the wearer from volatility, ensuring that successes achieved are maintained over the long term rather than burned out quickly through imbalance or external pressures. The strategic use of accessories also extends to understanding material interactions. For instance, leather belts, if ethically sourced, can provide strong grounding energy, connecting the wearer's lower chakras to stability and perseverance. Silk scarves, flowing and natural, can soften and regulate energy around sensitive areas like the throat, enhancing communication, diplomacy, and emotional expression. Stone beads, depending on their mineral composition, can strengthen specific chi frequencies, hematite for courage and grounding, lapis lazuli for insight and truth, carnelian for creativity and vitality. Each accessory becomes, in effect, a tiny altar worn on the body, a conscious tool for directing and magnifying life force toward a specific intention. However, it is critical to remember that random accumulation of accessories, even if they are individually auspicious, can lead to energetic scattering. Just as a room cluttered with too many good objects becomes energetically heavy and confusing, a body overloaded with accessories sends mixed signals to the universe. There must be clarity of purpose. One or two highly intentional, well-aligned accessories are infinitely more powerful than a dozen random trinkets. In Feng Shui, less is often more, provided that the less is chosen with precision and clarity. Accessories should never compete with each other. They should form a harmonious, energetic orchestra supporting your daily goals. Another often overlooked aspect is the energetic maintenance of accessories. Like clothing, accessories absorb and hold energetic imprints over time. A necklace worn during a period of grief or fear may carry residues of that emotional state, subtly affecting the wearer's current energy field. Regular energetic cleansing through sunlight, moonlight, smudging with sage or palo santo, sound bathing with bells or singing bowls, or simple mindful intention is essential to keep accessories functioning as clear, powerful amplifiers rather than becoming hidden sources of energetic drag. It is also beneficial to align your accessories with the dominant seasonal energies for maximum effect. In spring, when wood energy flourishes, incorporating greenstones like jade or aventurine can support growth initiatives and fresh starts. In summer, when fire energy peaks, gold jewelry or vibrant carnelian pieces can enhance visibility, leadership, and passion. In autumn, ruled by metal, silver, hematite, or white jade, can sharpen focus and support harvest energy. In winter, when water predominates, deep blue stones like lapis lazuli or black tourmaline can reinforce inner reflection, protection, and strategic conservation of energy. The mindful use of accessories extends even to the way they are positioned on the body. In Feng Shui, different parts of the body correspond to different energy centers and life domains. Rings worn on the index finger, governed by wood, can amplify leadership and growth, while rings on the middle finger, associated with earth, reinforce balance, responsibility, and financial stability. Necklaces that rest over the heart chakra can amplify love, compassion, and emotional magnetism. Bracelets and watches worn on the left wrist, the receiving side of the body, can attract desired energies inward, while those worn on the right wrist, the giving side, can enhance outward action and influence. Ultimately, the principle behind accessories in Feng Shui is one of magnification. Whatever you wear, you magnify. If you wear energy tools chosen with clarity, reverence, and purpose, you project a field of energy that naturally draws in what you seek. Wealth flows more easily toward those who embody the energy of prosperity. Leadership roles are offered more readily to those who consistently radiate clarity and authority. Protective support emerges almost effortlessly for those whose field is harmonized, stable, and clear. This approach requires a shift in how we think about personal adornment. No longer is jewelry or fashion simply about aesthetics or status. Every morning, as you select your accessories, you are making a statement to the universe. This is the energy I choose to cultivate today. This is the field I choose to expand. This is the path I am walking. And these are the invisible allies I carry with me. Each gemstone, each metal, each fiber becomes a living affirmation of your intentions, an energetic contract with your destiny. Thus, in the practice of Feng Shui, accessories are sacred tools, small but mighty extensions of your life force. They deserve the same respect, care, and intentionality that you would give to the architecture of your home, the nourishment of your body, or the cultivation of your relationships. By honoring the energetic power of accessories, you elevate not only your appearance but your entire field of possibility. You become a walking beacon of clear, directed qi, magnetizing wealth, success, protection, and joy with every step you. Section 5. The silent wealth killers in your wardrobe. In the ancient practice of Feng Shui, we are taught that energy, or qi, is not only influenced by grand structures like houses or temples, but also by the small, seemingly insignificant details that most people overlook. One of the greatest silent saboteurs of personal fortune, success, and well-being is not found in financial markets or competition, but quietly hiding in a place most people neglect: their own wardrobes. Every piece of clothing you wear carries an energetic imprint, and whether you realize it or not, your garments are broadcasting signals to the universe about your readiness to receive abundance, your respect for yourself, and your alignment with the natural flows of prosperity. Ignoring the energetic state of your clothing can quietly, steadily, and devastatingly erode your wealth qi, even as you work tirelessly toward your goals. Messy clothes, messy energy, invisible to the eyes, but deeply unmistakably felt by the universe. The first major wealth killer lurking in wardrobes is the presence of damaged, stained, or neglected clothing. Garments that are torn, faded, missing buttons, permanently wrinkled, or otherwise visibly worn out are not merely an aesthetic issue. They symbolize stagnant, trapped, and decaying qi. In Feng Shui, physical decay mirrors energetic decay. When you continue to wear damaged clothes, you are unconsciously anchoring yourself to energies of decline, scarcity, and lack of self-respect. You are signaling that you are willing to carry the broken, the outdated, and the depleted into new chapters of your life. Imagine trying to attract new financial opportunities while carrying the silent, energetic message that you tolerate decay in your most intimate possessions. The universe responds accordingly. Opportunities may feel just out of reach, wealth may seem to trickle instead of flow, and small misfortunes may accumulate without clear explanation. To reverse this, it is essential to regularly audit your wardrobe. Clothes that are torn beyond repair, permanently stained, or excessively worn must be thanked for their service and respectfully removed. This ritual creates space, physically and energetically, for new, vibrant, opportunity-enhancing energy to enter your life. A second common mistake is the over-reliance on black tones without appropriate energetic balancing. Black, when used correctly, is a powerful and sophisticated color in Feng Shui. It resonates with the water element, supporting wisdom, depth, and strategic energy. However, when black dominates the wardrobe excessively or without complementary colors, it creates a heaviness that stagnates the personal energy field. Instead of flowing freely and attracting abundance, the qi becomes dense, inert, and resistant to movement. Overwhelming your energy field with black can lead to feelings of emotional isolation, creative blockage, and a general slowing down of personal momentum. Financially, this may manifest as delayed payments, missed opportunities, or projects that never seem to lift off the ground. To use black wisely, it must be balanced with fire-supporting colors like red, orange, or purple, or earth tones like yellow and ochre, depending on the energetic context. Adding even small accents, a bright scarf, a bold tie, a gold accessory, can reintroduce movement, vitality, and flow into an otherwise stagnant, energetic presentation. The goal is not to eliminate black entirely, but to recognize when its influence needs counterbalancing to maintain a healthy, dynamic qi field. The third major mistake is dressing without regard for the energetic context of the day's events. In Feng Shui, different activities and environments call for different energetic supports. High-energy, opportunity-driven events, such as business meetings, interviews, negotiations, and launches, require clothing that amplifies assertiveness, visibility, and leadership, qualities associated with the fire element. Wearing muted, cold, or excessively dark colors to such events dampens your qi at precisely the moment it needs to shine brightest. Conversely, deeply personal, introspective, or healing-centered activities might call for more water or earth-aligned clothing to support emotional depth and groundedness. Dressing in energetic opposition to the day's requirements creates internal conflict and weakens your ability to achieve desired outcomes. For instance, attending a high-level negotiation while dressed in passive, energy-absorbing colors reduces your persuasive power without you ever realizing it. Going to a networking event in dull, heavy fabrics and colors aligned with stagnation limits your magnetism and approachability. Aligning your wardrobe choices with the intended energy of your day is not about superstition. It is about precision, awareness, and deliberate energetic design. Beyond these three major mistakes, there are more subtle but equally impactful wardrobe habits that can quietly sabotage wealth qi. Wearing clothes that do not fit properly, too tight, too loose, poorly tailored, creates energetic disharmony around the body. Clothes that hang awkwardly or constrict natural movement distort the body's energy flow, leading to reduced confidence, disjointed communication, and missed synchronizations with favorable opportunities. Similarly, wearing clothing imbued with unresolved emotional residue, garments strongly associated with heartbreak, failure, or trauma, without energetic cleansing, binds you to past experiences and prevents fresh, vibrant energy from taking root. The cumulative effect of these seemingly small missteps is profound. Your wardrobe is not just a collection of fabric and fashion. It is a living, breathing extension of your energy field. Every tear tolerated, every stain ignored, every imbalance in color choice, every context missed, all compound daily to either amplify or diminish your energetic signature. And in Feng Shui, it is this signature that the universe reads when it sends opportunities, resources, allies, and challenges your way. One particularly striking case from my consulting experience involved a client who was a brilliant entrepreneur with excellent ideas, a strong network, and a tireless work ethic, yet who struggled to break past a certain income ceiling year after year. On examination, it became clear that his wardrobe was dominated by old, faded suits he had worn for over a decade, many of them with small tears, missing buttons, or permanent stains. His attachment to these garments was emotional. They represented the early struggles of his career. But energetically, they were anchoring him to a frequency of survival, not expansion. After a complete wardrobe recalibration, releasing the damaged clothing, refreshing his daily attire with colors and structures aligned with leadership, success, and growth, his financial trajectory shifted dramatically. Within 1 year, his company revenue doubled, and new partnerships blossomed with an ease he had never experienced before. His story was not an isolated miracle. It was the inevitable consequence of energetic realignment through intentional clothing choices. In Feng Shui, the universe is profoundly responsive to preparation and symbolism. When you dress in a way that honors your vitality, respects the energetic context of your goals, and symbolizes your readiness for greater fortune, you create an irresistible field of attraction. The universe recognizes coherence, respect, and clarity, and rewards it accordingly. Therefore, to protect and enhance your wealth qi, regular energetic wardrobe audits are essential. Set aside time at least twice a year to review every item of clothing you own. Ask yourself, does this garment support who I am becoming, or does it tether me to who I was? Does it amplify vitality, confidence, and readiness? Or does it whisper stagnation, decay, and complacency? Be unsparing in your honesty. Release what no longer serves. Cleanse what carries old memories. Honor what supports your highest expression. Remember, messy clothes, messy energy, invisible to the eyes but deeply felt by the universe. Your wardrobe, when cultivated with awareness and respect, becomes not just a source of comfort or pride, but a living engine of wealth generation, life enhancement, and silent, unstoppable success. Section 6. A 30-second daily Feng Shui clothing activation ritual. In the deeper layers of Feng Shui practice, mastery is not found in grand gestures, but in small, repeated acts of alignment that weave intention into the very fabric of daily life. Energy responds to attention. Qi is shaped not only by the structures we build or the environments we cultivate, but also by the moments we choose to tune into the silent dialogues happening all around and within us. One of the simplest yet most potent ways to influence your energetic field each day is through a practice I call the 30-second clothing activation ritual. Though it takes less than half a minute, when performed consistently, it acts as a daily calibration of your personal chai, ensuring that you step into the world as a magnet for aligned opportunities, protection, and success. The ritual is deceptively simple yet profoundly transformative. Before stepping out into your day, find a moment to pause. Stand before a mirror where you can see your full reflection. This is not a time for judgment, critique, or ego. It is a moment of pure energetic presence. Look directly at yourself, not just at your physical appearance, but at the energy you are embodying. Notice the way your clothes fit your form, the colors you have chosen, the accessories you have selected. Sense, even if subtly, the energetic conversation already happening between your body and what you are wearing. Next, gently touch your outfit. This tactile connection is critical. In Feng Shui, touch activates attention, and attention directs energy. As your fingers brush the fabric, you are not merely making a physical gesture. You are establishing an energetic bridge between your conscious mind and the vibrational field surrounding your body. You are awakening your clothing to its highest purpose, not as passive material, but as an active participant in your day's journey. As you touch your clothing, speak the following affirmation either aloud or silently, but with full intention. Today, I carry energy that attracts the right opportunities. These words are not magic in the superficial sense. They are directives, commands issued from your conscious mind to your subconscious and to the vast, responsive universe. They focus your internal compass on alignment, not chaos, on readiness, not hesitation, on expansion, not contraction. In traditional Feng Shui, affirmations are viewed as carriers of qi when spoken with sincerity and clarity. They imprint the desired vibrational signature onto your personal energy field, making you a living beacon for experiences, people, and possibilities that resonate with your intention. This activation ritual serves several energetic purposes simultaneously. First, it sharpens your awareness of your own energetic field, preventing you from drifting unconsciously through your day. Second, it embeds your clothing, the very shield you wear, into meetings, conversations, and environments, with a focused, positive frequency. Third, it gently reprograms your subconscious mind to seek, recognize, and respond to opportunities that align with your goals, even when you are not consciously thinking about them. Fourth, it creates a daily moment of mindfulness without requiring extensive meditation, visualization, or ceremony, making it sustainable even in the busiest of schedules. It is important to understand that the power of this ritual does not lie in the ritual itself, but in the consistency of practice. Energy feels like muscles strengthen with repetition. The more days you perform this 30-second activation, the more attuned your mind, body, and clothing become to the energies of success, prosperity, and alignment. Over time, you may notice subtle but undeniable shifts. Conversations flowing more easily, new opportunities appearing without excessive struggle, challenges resolving with less resistance, and a general sense that life is moving with you rather than against you. The deeper philosophy behind this ritual connects to a core principle of Feng Shui. Where intention goes, energy flows. By consciously activating your clothing each morning, you are setting a deliberate trajectory for your personal energy to move toward favorable outcomes. Without this moment of focus, even the most carefully chosen outfits, aligned colors, supportive fabrics, structured fits, remain dormant potential. It is the act of conscious activation that transforms potential into kinetic energy, possibility into manifestation. Some practitioners choose to enhance this ritual by incorporating symbolic gestures or supplementary elements. For example, some may gently tap 3 times over their solar plexus area while affirming their intention, invoking the traditional Feng Shui number of growth and luck. Others may visualize a soft golden light surrounding their clothing as they speak, strengthening the protective and magnetic fields around them. Some may even lightly spritz their garments with a mist infused with essential oils, such as bergamot, for success, or sandalwood for grounding, adding an aromatic layer to the energetic activation. These enhancements are not necessary, but can deepen the sensory and symbolic power of the practice for those who feel called to personalize it. It is also worth noting that this ritual becomes even more potent when integrated with seasonal energy flows. In spring, affirmations might emphasize growth and new beginnings. In summer, they might focus on expansion, visibility, and influence. In autumn, they might reinforce harvesting the fruits of prior efforts and refining clarity. In winter, they might center on introspection, conservation, and strategic positioning. Aligning your daily activation not only with personal goals, but also with the greater rhythms of nature multiplies the coherence and effectiveness of your energetic field. From a broader perspective, this 30-second daily practice aligns perfectly with the fundamental Feng Shui principle that true transformation does not always require sweeping external change. Often, the most powerful shifts occur through internal realignment, small, deliberate acts repeated consistently over time, like the gentle but persistent shaping of a river carving through stone. By taking these few seconds each morning to anchor yourself energetically, you become an active participant in your destiny rather than a passive reactor to circumstance. Imagine the difference between two individuals. One rushes out each morning half aware, clothes thrown on without thought, carrying the energetic residue of yesterday's stresses, doubts, and distractions. The other pauses, connects with their clothing, breathes intention into their field, and steps into the world consciously prepared to meet opportunity halfway. Over time, the paths of these two individuals diverge dramatically. One struggles upstream against invisible resistance, while the other flows downstream, carried by currents of support they help set in motion. This practice also teaches humility and empowerment simultaneously. Humility, because it reminds us that we are always interacting with forces larger than ourselves. Energy fields, universal flows, unseen possibilities. Empowerment, because it shows that even in the smallest actions, touching fabric, speaking an affirmation, we have the ability to influence those forces in profound ways. It bridges the ancient wisdom of Feng Shui with the practical realities of modern life, offering a tool that is accessible, elegant, and quietly revolutionary. For those who seek to deepen the ritual further, keeping a small journal of daily activations can be enlightening. Recording the day's affirmation, any sensations noticed during the ritual, and any notable events or synchronicities that unfold can create a tangible map of your energetic evolution. Over weeks and months, patterns often emerge that affirm the real, tangible power of this simple practice. Opportunities appear faster, setbacks feel less overwhelming, inner resilience grows stronger, life begins to feel less like a battle and more like a dance of aligned movement. Ultimately, the 30-second clothing activation ritual is a gift you give yourself each day, a moment of sovereignty, clarity, and connection. It costs nothing, it demands little, and yet it delivers extraordinary returns for those who practice it faithfully. It transforms your wardrobe from mere fabric into a living, breathing ally in your journey toward prosperity, protection, and fulfillment. It reminds you, gently but firmly, that you are not a passive bystander in the shaping of your fate. You are a participant, a creator, an energetic architect of your own destiny, beginning with the very first layer you place upon your skin each morning. When practiced with sincerity and consistency, this ritual can become one of the most powerful anchors of personal Feng Shui mastery. It is a bridge between the invisible and the visible, the internal and the external, the dream and its realization. 30 seconds, one conscious breath, one clear intention, a lifetime of difference. Ultimately, you are your own Feng Shui master. As we come to the close of this journey, it is important to remember that your wardrobe is not merely decoration. It is energy architecture. Every color you choose and every texture you embrace, every button you fasten is participating in a silent conversation with the universe about who you are and what you are prepared to receive. It is easy to think of clothing as something external, something superficial, something secondary to more serious pursuits like career goals or financial planning. Yet in the practice of Feng Shui, it is the seemingly small choices, the fabrics on your skin, the colors that frame your aura, the accessories that punctuate your presence, that often open or close the doors to wealth, success, and protection. The truth is simple and profound. Every morning, you are given a brush to repaint your energy field. Your outfit is your first conscious act of energetic design for the day. It can either build a magnetic field that draws in aligned opportunities or scatter your focus and diffuse your potential. Choose your strokes wisely, because wealth is not a random blessing, success is not a lucky accident, and protection is not something reserved for a chosen few. They are cultivated, attracted, and sustained by deliberate, energetic design. Design that starts with your very first conscious choices each day. Clothing, when chosen and worn with mindfulness, becomes more than fabric. It becomes a tool of transformation. It becomes a living talisman that carries your intentions into meetings, negotiations, casual encounters, and silent opportunities you do not even know are being woven around you. It protects, it attracts, it amplifies. It shapes not only how others perceive you, but how the unseen forces of luck, fortune, and destiny respond to you. You are not at the mercy of external conditions. You are shaping them quietly, steadily, through the invisible power of your personal Chi field. And the most empowering realization is this: you do not need anyone else's permission to begin. You do not need a fortune teller, a guru, or an offensive consultant to realign your destiny. You are already your own Feng Shui master. You have always been. Every time you open your closet, every time you reach for a piece of clothing, every time you decide how you will present your energy to the world, you are practicing Feng Shui at its most intimate, potent level. It is not about chasing perfection. It is about cultivating awareness. It is about asking yourself with sincerity and curiosity, is what I am choosing today supporting the life I desire to create? Small changes compound. Small acts of alignment create momentum. One color shift, one better fabric choice, one conscious accessory. Over time, these seemingly minor decisions weave a tapestry of energy around you so strong, so coherent, that wealth, success, and protection no longer feel like uphill battles, but like natural extensions of who you have become. If this teaching opened a new perspective for you, I invite you to share below. What is one small change you'll make in your clothing starting today? Your reflections are powerful, not just for yourself, but for others walking this path alongside you. Your voice matters. Your journey matters. And if you would like to continue exploring the hidden wisdom of Feng Shui applied to everyday life, practical, grounded, transformational, I warmly invite you to subscribe to New Day Mindfulness. Your support will not only help me reach my first milestone of 1,000 followers, allowing me to share even more high-quality teachings with you, but it will also help build a community of people committed to living intentionally, abundantly, and wisely. If today's message touched even one quiet corner of your heart, if it sparked even one small desire to live more consciously and design your destiny with greater care, then I am honored. Please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Your simple actions ripple outward, creating energetic support that amplifies far beyond what you can see. You are the master of your own fortune. You are the designer of your own energy. Every morning gives you a new canvas. Every choice you make paints your future. Walk forward with intention, walk forward with grace, and remember, the life you dream of is already reaching for you. Dress for it, align for it, live for it.